Hi, everyone, and welcome to our meeting on data collect batches. I'm Anita Collins, and I'm the Change Management Lead for Connect Carolina, and I'm here just to kick it off today. Thanks for coming out, and it may seem kind of silly to be holding a mic, and the group is not that big, but we're also webcasting this, and it's a rainy day. We weren't sure if people would rather attend it from their desks today, so we do have about 5 or 6 people who are connecting over the web, so that's why we're holding the mic, even though it feels kind of silly. But just for your FYI, we will be recording this and we'll be posting it on the CC Info website. So we'll be making it available to you in case there's some information that you don't want to have to jot down or whatever. So it's available to you guys. So we'll go ahead. Before I do the agenda, we wanted to ask you a quick question. So sure that you guys actually call this thing that we're talking about today. So we're calling it, and then we have 50 people, like it's in the Okay, so re-mic. Okay. So our topics today, we got quite a few topics, but they're each fairly quick. Kathy James is here from Accounting Services, and she's going to talk about year-end as it relates to data collect batches. She's also going to talk about the correct format for a journal header. She's going to talk about also how to submit requests for new data collect batch sources. Steve Kinney's here, and he's going to talk about a new process that's going to go into place about how journals with errors are going to be archived. And then Michelle Clayton's here from ITS, and she's going to talk about an effort underway for closing out OSR projects and kind of how that touches on data collect batches. And then also talk about an initiative to make sure we have the latest contact information for everyone. There's going to be plenty of time for questions. You can ask questions as we go, and then you can also, we'll have some time at the end for answering any questions that you have. Before we get started, though, I just want to make sure you know who everyone is. So here in the room, we have Kathy James from Accounting Services. So does everybody know Kathy? Yeah, she's a good person to know. We also have Sue Dong from Accounting Services as well. And Ewan Wang couldn't be here. She had a conflict today, but she's also involved with the data collect batch process. Here from the Finance Functional Team, the GL team, is Steve Kinney. Steve, everybody knows Steve, right? we put him in front of you guys many times over the course of the project. And also here is Claire Duffy, formerly from Athletics, but now part of the project team. And then I've already told you who I am. And then Michelle Clayton is here from ITS, and she is, I'm going to let you.
I'm a director within Enterprise Applications, and I actually manage a team that's responsible for about 20 data collect batches. But in addition to that, as part of the OSR project closeout, that's a pretty large project, and we've divided up into different groups to lead subtask of that. So I'm responsible for leading the subtask for external systems being prepared for the changes coming with OSR. So that's one of the big things we want to communicate today and make you aware of.
Okay. Actually, I guess I can turn it over to you. All right. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy James. Do you want me to clip this on you, or do you want to just? I don't know. Do you have a pocket? No.
We'll figure it out.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let's see. Let me get myself in order here. I was going to do my own introductions here and everything, but Anita's been nice enough to go ahead and handle all that. So we're talking about end-of-year dates. There are two dates that you see on this slide, and they have to do with the dates that you've probably already seen on the end-of-the-year memos that went out. They match those two dates that have to do with journals that are specifically handling state funds and then all other types of funds. So the first date, June 20th, is involved with state funds, and June 24th are all other funds. So those are the two dates that, particularly for DCBs, that you need to really pay attention to in your processing. If you regularly have state funds on your entries, then you definitely need to have them done by June 20th. And down at the bottom, if you did not receive an end-of-year memo, if you're one of those lucky people maybe, we have the website noted for where that you can go and actually get a copy of that memo. And of course it's going to include all the different central offices and all their dates, such as purchasing, so on and so forth, in addition to accounting services. Now, these dates are actually really, really important. There's several reasons why that is the case. And I would say probably the number one reason is that we have really strict deadlines from the state where the university actually has to report on all types of funds, not just state, and we have a very strict deadline that we have to meet. So we have to consequently set up relatively strict deadlines for all the processing to be done so we can reach that deadline. Accounting Services, in addition, works as a member of central offices that have to coordinate all their activities, such as OSR and financial reporting. And all of us have deadlines, and since we have to coordinate all our deadlines together as team members, that also means that we have to be able to reach all those earlier deadlines to meet the deadlines for reporting to the state. In addition to that, accounting services, just like all the other team members, have their own end-of-year duties that are a great deal more than these particular journals. And so we had in the trying to manage all of those deadlines and coordinating pieces so that we do meet the state requirement, we have to have those deadlines set. So one thing that you need to remember is if you foresee a problem with any of these deadlines, we want you to tell us about them. It's really important. And look at your business now and let us know now, because then we can probably try to get a plan together that helps get done what you need to have done. But it's really, really important at this stage to let us know early on what your concerns or what your issues are, so we can work with you. And we'll, instead of waiting on the 20th and say, oh my God, I've got some state funds, but I haven't had a chance to load them up yet, something of that sort. So we're really here. We've got staff members to help work with you on this, so let us know, okay? One thing that you need to keep in mind is that by the end, by these deadlines, the journals have to be valid, both through combo edits and by budget check. So the status on the journals has to be valid, and it has to be submitted into workflow for approval by accounting services. Hold on just a second, okay? So that's really, really important. If that hasn't happened, then you haven't met the deadline. What you need to do is if you or someone else in your area should be monitoring your journals to make sure that they have met that status and have routed. You may find it helpful to set up internal deadlines within your group to make sure that you have, if any problems arise in your processing, that you're actually able to you'll have time to take care of any issues that do arise. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead and ask your question.
All the way to the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
We have a billing event that occurs on June 28th. How do we get something in by June 24th?
Well, we're happy to talk about it. I'm sure that's come up. Oh, excuse me. Let me repeat the question. The question was that part of campus bills out until June 28th. How do they have their business recorded by the deadline? What we're going to do is we're going to note, I'm sure there are other areas that have possibly the same concern, and we'll be sending out an email to you about how you can possibly handle that. Some more communication out. That is a very valid issue, and I can't answer that question for you right at the moment, but we will get back to you about it. Mm-hmm.
May I ask for what is your journal source? So the first four facilities, we bill at the end of the month. So, I mean, it's possible that we can just put our issue billing to the start of the next fiscal year.
Go ahead, Steve.
Nancy, that would be my recommendation. I mean, you have the same issue as a lot of people do when you start bumping up against the end of the fiscal year. If it's possible to put that charge into your July batch, I think that's probably the best recommendation. That works for your internal accounting.
So the issue is not having billing past the cutoffs. And Steve Kinney just mentioned that any billing that you would not be able to record by the cutoffs, he would recommend that they go to the next month's billing in the new fiscal year. Okay? But we'll send out another communication probably to clarify that issue somewhat too. Okay, now I have a note here to just remind everybody the ranges that are for state funds, since they are so important in our reporting. The state funds fall in particular chart field ranges for funds. They are $20,100 to $22,199. For source ranges, they fall between $12,001 and $14,001. So if you need to make a notation of that, plus you can also, on CC Info resource documents, there's some wonderful documents out there on all the chart fields. Okay, for our next slide, having to do with journal headers, this is a really important piece of information in your journals, and the reason being, as the slide states, is that the information that you put in the header description indicates to the approver and to the auditor what your business purpose is, what you're trying to accomplish in your particular journal. So in your header description should include what is the file for, what is the period for this file, and the accounting contact information as well as the IT contact information if that's applicable. There's an example on the slide which reads laundry services for period 7 FY 2016. The accounting contact in this case was Tommy Gunter, and the technical contact is Sharon Smith. Now, just to make you aware, it could be that the business that you're recording in that particular journal is not necessarily aligned with your journal date. It could be a period previous to the actual journal. So that's just something to pay attention to. Does anybody have any questions about that? Yes, ma'am.
Considered a special character because the specifications here say not to use special characters for the long description, but I see you've got commas and colons and stuff in there, so
You're talking.
sure what special character.
Okay, we're going to. Okay, the question is, what are special characters in the description and the journal format? Go ahead, Steve.
We've never seen any issues with commas and colons. We do see issues occasionally with like parrots or some of the more unique type characters that might throw off it's a fixed width file is what you're producing, and sometimes certain characters can actually push your field off by one character, and it's just enough to cause a fail. It's really those more unique type characters that you see. Commas, question marks, fine. Colons, semicolons, we've never seen an issue with. It's just some of those crazier type characters that can often cause a.
So you would say the typical writing punctuation characters are fine, but other special characters, maybe like an asterisk or something of that sort, would be problematic? Okay. All right. On to our journal header information. Or, excuse me, that's what we were just talking about. Sorry about that. Requesting a new DCB journal. This is, we're trying to give you a heads up here that we'll be moving the business process for requesting a DCB journal and journal source back to more as it was in the pre-Connect Carolina world. So that what you'll be doing from here on forward, what you'll need to do is to contact accounting services, and you can do that via email. It's at cyber-finance@unc.edu, and then we'll help work with you to fill out your request form, and then work it through the process with you to actually get that established. So any of you that were here prior in FRS, you know that if you were involved with DCBs before, that you know that you actually had to define what your business was, and then we would line out what your journal lines would look like, what the correct accounts were for that particular business, and then you would be set up so that you could actually do your DCB. So this is more or less just a heads up of that we're more or less returning back to that type of process. And let's see. If you go to the next slide, that just shows anybody who's familiar, this is pretty much what the old form looked like. So there'll be a form out here for you to use. Will be, when you contact accounting services, we'll send you a copy of that form, and then we'll start working the process. Does anybody have any questions about that? Again, if you have any questions, just contact accounting services. No questions? Okay, then. Steve Kinney's going to come up to the podium and take over the microphone. Thank you, everyone.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome for being here, and good afternoon to those that are on the webinar. I'm Steve Kinney. I think I know most of y'all, and if you don't know me, I'm certain that you're familiar with my email, because I'm the lucky one that quite often has to send you back a message that, that your file did not successfully validate. And my ears burn, I guess, a lot during the day. So anyway, again, I'm Steve Kinney, and as earlier mentioned, Claire Duffy over here. We're part of the finance functional BA team. I wanted to share with you a couple updates that we intend to do. We're not going to do these until after
July 1st. We all have a lot on our plates for the next 6 weeks, and we don't want to introduce anything too radical then. But I wanted to share with you a couple updates that I think will help this process improve quite a bit. I want to emphasize that these changes are really transparent from your end. It doesn't involve any type of reconfiguration of your file. Whatever internal process that you have in place, you're not going to have to change. These changes are really from our end, from the finance functional team's end. What we want to do is we want to start archiving aired journals. And I'll explain this in just a minute, but one of the reasons behind this is, quite frankly, we didn't expect the frequency of data collect batch files coming in with Connect Carolina. If you remember back in FRS, when you submitted your data collect batch file, it was usually kind of a one and done type thing. You were usually got it right the first time. When we went to Connect Carolina, we implemented much more control over budgets. The chart fields became more complicated, and quite frankly, it just was more difficult to submit a valid file that also passed budget. So what's happening is we're getting a lot of these files, and for many of you, it's an iterative process. You submit a file, and it may not validate the first time, and you have to make some type of correction and do it again. And what happens is, even though your file may be aired, it's still sitting in the general ledger. It's in an aired state, and it's still sitting in Connect Carolina. And someone has to physically delete that file out of the general ledger. And right now that really is handled by accounting services. And on any given month, they may literally have to delete several hundred aired data collect batch files. So another problem with keeping them in the general ledger in an aired state is that, let's say, for example, there might be a budget exception in a bad journal. If someone goes in and changes budget on that journal and it gets re-budget checked, that journal could validate on a second term basis. So you've already gotten your error report back saying that you got a bad journal and you're working on correcting that. And if for some reason there's some type of adjustment to a budget in that original journal, it could validate and it could potentially post. And that has happened in the past, and we've recognized that, and we're trying to correct that. We recognize that there have been occasions that you've submitted a journal that was in some type of aired state and for whatever reason became valid later on and posted. And we want to fix that. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is through this new process of archiving aired journals. So, and again, this is totally transparent to you all. There's no configuration change from your end. But when an aired journal comes in now, or at least after July, it's going to still create the error report that you get to let you know what the problem is. But after it goes through that process, it's basically, we're going to put some code into the process that's essentially going to move that journal over to what we call an archived table. So it's going to no longer be in the general ledger. It'll still be in Connect Carolina, but it's going to be in this archive table over here that no one really reports off or doesn't get posted to a ledger. So the benefit of this, there's actually several benefits. Number one, it's a big benefit to accounting services because it's going to save them a lot of time at the end of each month. It's going to be a benefit to you all because hopefully we'll avoid or certainly minimize this double posting issue. And then it's also, thirdly, a benefit that those journals will always be there for reference. If for some reason you need to go back after the fact and whatever, see, hey, what was in journal, the FLW journal from June 2nd or something, we'll be able to recover that for you much easier. So again, just wanted to share that one change with you we're constantly looking for ways to refine this process. And again, a lot of this is just due to the fact of the frequency of these files coming in now. They literally come in every day from some departments. We see a spike every month towards the end of the month. Everyone's trying to get them in for the closing, but I mean, this is a daily process for us. So we do hope that will help. One other thing I want to mention is the error reports that we send back to you. It's essentially an Excel spreadsheet, a query that's generated out of Connect Carolina that we email back to you. We're happy to customize those for you. Right now, most of those reports are pretty consistent across all the different departments. I mean, that's how we went live, is we built this report. But if for some reason you want that report customized in some fashion, I know a few departments have come back and said, you know, hey, can you add the chart fields to it, or maybe move this column here so that it talks to our internal system a little bit better. We can certainly do that for you. And I would just suggest that that's probably maybe more of a one-off type thing, that if you have an interest in that, if you just want to contact us and we can work with you on that query. Those are really two of the changes that we want to implement here at the beginning of next fiscal year. But again, we're always looking for your feedback on how we can improve this. So I think that was my second slide. And I know we're also going to have time for questions at the end, but I'm happy to, if there's one on anyone's mind right now, if you have any questions. Yes, sir?
So when that journal entry goes to archival error storage, is the owner of that chart field string contacted to let them know that they have an error on their budget side so that they can make a correction to the budget?
Yeah, so the question for those on the webinar is even with the new archive process, is somehow the original, the owner of the bad chart field string, are they going to know that? And it's really, we really look to the owner of the file to reach out to their customer and let their customer know that there is an error. And I fully recognize that you're doing a lot of work that
tens of thousands of dollars that we haven't been able to build this year because of bad budgets.
Yeah.
And for us to try and identify who the owner of those chart field strings is, with hundreds of chart field strings in our files, it's almost an impossible task. We need to hire a full-time person just to take care of that.
Yeah, I totally recognize that. The budgeting has been a challenge for everyone, and I also recognize that it's really not fair to you to have to go and chase down people that may be giving you bad chart field strings or chart field strings with that don't have appropriate budget on. I totally recognize that.
I'm not talking about the chart field strings that are in error, because we can correct that.
Yeah.
It's the budget side of it where we have our problem, because it will fail budget check, and finding the correct person to make that budget correction.
Yeah.
Is a problem.
Yeah. I would say that process is slowly improving because, number one, we have loosened up some of the budget definitions. In fact, right now, one of the only budget definitions that's what we call controlled is the OSR budget definition on what we call the parent level. So in most cases now, the budget will still go through. There may not necessarily be enough budget, but it will still go through with the exception of just a handful of budget definitions. And you're actually given a pretty good segue to what Michelle's going to talk about in just a second. But I'll turn it over to her in just a second, and maybe she can even elaborate on some of the changes that are coming that might hopefully help that. But we do recognize that budgeting's been tough, and I think a lot of that was just quite frankly, I think it caught a lot of people by surprise the first year of Connect Carolina, and I'm seeing improvement, but we still recognize that it's an issue.
I've seen a decrease.
Yeah.
So I can see some improvement on it. It's just big months that we still have to go back and try to figure it out.
Absolutely. So, are there any? Yep.
One of the things I wanted to mention, I work at Lineberger Cancer Center, and what we started doing for the ones that fail budget check is we put in the non-personnel expense account that chart field department belongs to, because that's what Interport does for their facilities. They charge the non-personnel expense account. We haven't had any problems with departments to contact us, get a copy of the invoice, and then they'll get it to a correct source. And that way it's not sitting on our books. It's that department's responsibility for the PI. And that is brought down our accounts receivable significantly.
Okay. And I'm going to repeat your answer just because I'm not sure those on the webinar heard it. But one suggestion was from, and it's from Lineberger, right, that they use a suspense account when they have a chart field string that's in error. And I know that several departments out there utilize that same strategy. From my perspective, we don't necessarily have a problem with that as long as your customers are okay with that, and that they recognize that they may be seeing yeah. Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. Again, as long as that is clearly communicated to the customer and that they're on board with that. So, are there any other questions? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, and she's actually going to talk about even a bigger change that's going. so.
Again, I'm Michelle Clayton from ITS Enterprise Applications. But we've been working, ITS as a whole has been working with finance and OSR to improve the project and grant management process, not just for OSR, but for campus in general. So today, a project exists and it has a budget end date. So a lot of times until it gets to the budget check process, we don't really know that the grant is in error or closed out and can't continue to receive transactions. So there is actively now in Connect Carolina a processing status where the grant is either active or inactive. However, that really has not been utilized as of yet, and almost every grant project out there is active. So they will soon start, probably sometime this month if you haven't seen it already, inactivating several of the older projects. Everything that should be somewhat transparent to you. If you do the chart field validations, the chart field validation that is currently, if it is inactive, will be a combo edit error today. So that's kind of the process today. Starting September 1st, they're introducing project status. Project status will depend on what you're doing, and so they'll have one, for example, reporting. So before the project ends, it'll go into reporting, which is when the departments are reconciling the grant and trying to get it closed out, and they don't allow new journals to come in. This project status will become part of the web service for chart field validation, and you will know in the validation process that you can't charge this grant anymore. So hopefully what that means is when someone is requesting your services that you're going to have, you're doing an interdepartmental billing, that you will know up front from a validation process that the project will no longer accept charges, and you're not waiting until it fails budget error after your data collect batch has been submitted. So this is still in the early design and planning stages. There's a lot more information to come on this. We just wanted to go ahead and make sure you're all aware, since you do a lot of interdepartmental billings. So be paying attention to communications that will be coming out, but this is targeted September 1st. Go live. So the communications that will be coming out will be explaining what all the new statuses are for grants and what those statuses mean, and then how we're actually implementing it. And I don't know how many of you, when you are first requesting your services, use the chart field validation web services, or there's also the chart field checker where online you can enter a chart string and check it. But both of those will be updated to do this additional validation with project status. Any questions? So part of what we're looking for is making sure we have all the contact information up to date. So, for example, we have, for every data collect batch, we have a primary contact and the secondary contact. But in addition to that, we have all the emails of who should be notified. So when Steve is sending you the email that there's a journal error, that your data collect batch failed with an error, who all is he emailing on that? We want to make sure we're keeping that maintained. So if you have staffing changes, or if you have some group email that we should be using instead of an individual person's email, please notify accounting services at cyber-finance@unc.edu, and then they'll make sure that they're working with the business analyst team and the ITS team to get everything updated so that you're communicated with. This is also the list that will be communicating on the OFO project closeout as that moves closer into the new fiscal year. So please make sure we have updated information on that contact list. For everybody that was invited to this meeting, after this meeting, hopefully tomorrow, we'll be sending you kind of a spreadsheet of all the journal sources and who we have as contacts. Please review and get back to the cyberfinance@unc.edu and let us know of any changes that need to happen. So in addition to this, as we're kind of transitioning the project, right now a lot of contact is done directly with the finance business analyst team with Steve and Claire. We'll be transitioning more and more of that to accounting services. So if you have questions about your data collect batches, changes, a new request that Kathy reviewed in her portion, please email accounting services with that information. And with that, I think we've covered everything. Does anybody have overall questions? Or if you have feedback of what's working, not working in your data collect batch processes? Okay, so if there's no questions, I think that's everything. Oh, yes, ma'am. Sure.
Okay, I was looking in here. It was showing the okay, it says here currently files are picked up from the following servers. It says Augusta, Southport, MESEC, NAS. So right now, for the data collect batch that I do, I upload it directly into the PeopleSoft feed. I have, Steve knows about it. Steve knows about it. So how will that change? Because it says in here that you should not import or upload departmental billing.
Yeah, I think your current network or your path is still fine, it's still valid.
So I don't
you know, I don't think there's going to be any change to your, I'm not sure what exactly your pathway is, but obviously your file does get picked up each time.
And that will continue.
So for those who are joining us via the web, the question, so we have a handout here that we'll also be emailing out to everybody on the meeting about the data collect batch format and just general information on the data collect batch format. And there's a comment in there about where the files need to be saved in order to be loaded into Connect Carolina. And so Steve just mentioned, however this is currently working should continue to work going forward. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you all for coming out today.